All right. We are now moving into discussion item number 16 for consideration and adoption of an ordinance to set rates for the voter-approved cannabis business tax. First reading was February 28, 2023. Second reading, unless ordinance is modified on second reading, right? So I'm going to hand the floor over to Ms. Ebony Shelton for our presentation.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. As a point of reference, this is the continuation of a series of board items that you've seen and provided direction on over the last 2 years. Most recently, in June of last year, the board directed the Chief Administrative Officer to return in 2023 to set the initial rates if the tax was approved by the voters last fall, which is the purpose of today's item. I'm joined today by Brian Haggerty, the Assistant Group Finance Director for the Finance and General Government Group, and he will talk to you a little bit more about the background and decision points that are before the board today.
Thank you, Ebony. In January 2021, the board approved the item related to the Framework for Our Future measures to provide economic access and equity in the cannabis industry. The board directed staff to initiate the exploration of the implementation of a commercial cannabis ordinance, regulations, and programs with a social equity component for the unincorporated area. The action also included direction to explore the development and implementation of a commercial cannabis taxation program for the unincorporated area. Since then, the different components of the development of the county's socially equitable cannabis program have been moving in parallel. In fall of 2021, we engaged HDL companies to develop a commercial cannabis tax strategy and ordinance with potential to be placed on the November ballot, if approved by the board. We held 3 community outreach sessions in early February 2022 on cannabis tax policy to seek input to inform the ordinance development and overall fiscal analysis. The events were attended by both community members at large and those in the industry. Most of the feedback received at these events focused on the desired uses for taxation revenue in the future, such as support of social equity programs and preventative health and social programming. These feedback sessions helped inform the proposed cannabis business tax ordinance and fiscal report prepared by HDL that came to your board for input in spring of 2022, then was formally introduced and adopted by the board thereafter. Staff worked with the Registrar of Voters to place the proposed cannabis business tax on the ballot. On the November 8th, 2022 general election, the proposed tax was entitled Measure A. It required 50% plus 1 vote in order to pass and was certified by the Registrar of Voters on December 8th as passing with 57.45% of the vote. Your board declared the results thereafter on December 13th. Your board also considered a board letter on December 13th to authorize the application and acceptance of grant funds from the Cannabis Equity Grants Program for local jurisdictions, as well as receiving the social equity assessment. This report detailed additional community engagement that has occurred throughout the implementation of your board's direction. This report also included recommendations related to the business tax that could be considered when the Office of Equity and Racial Justice returns to the board relating to the socially equitable cannabis program at a later date. And finally, before returning to the board today, staff met with the existing cannabis businesses in the unincorporated area to gather their input on specific tax rates and methodologies. The adopted cannabis business tax ordinance has multiple components. Here are the highlights. First, the voter approval authorizes the county to charge a tax on cannabis businesses. Second, this is a general tax, meaning that all revenues received must be used for general governmental purposes and are not restricted to any specific purposes. All proceeds will be deposited into the general fund and allocated through the operational plan process. Third, the tax is applicable to the unincorporated area of the county only. Fourth, the voters approved a maximum tax rate for each type of cannabis business and authorized the Board of Supervisors to set the tax rates by ordinance. And finally, the voters also approved the use of 2 possible methodologies for taxation on cultivation, either square footage or gross receipts. I will now walk you through the decision points that are before your board today. Recommendation 1 before your board is to consider and determine the methodology that should be used for taxation and cultivation businesses, as reflected in 2 alternative draft ordinances. Option A, as detailed in Attachment A, is percentage of gross receipts. This option is directly proportional to the business's earnings. The revenues generated for the county are less predictable as sales may rise and fall throughout the year. This option automatically adjusts for fluctuations in sales and for inflation. And choosing this option may require the Treasurer Tax Collector to perform audits of gross receipts data. Option B, as detailed in Attachment B, is a tax based on square footage of the cultivation canopy area. This tax would be directly tied to the cultivation area on the business's permit. The amount of tax liability is known in advance to both the cultivator and the county, and occasional site inspections would be performed to confirm the cultivation area in compliance with the tax ordinance. As you will see on the next slide, different rates are recommended to account for the different market factors associated with each method of cultivation. The method may require periodic reviews of the rates to ensure that they are in line with current market conditions. The recommended rates for both methodologies take into consideration the potential tax burden and are designed to result in an equivalent tax on cultivation regardless of the methodology selected. Additional information about the methodology and assumptions in these calculations is available in the summary memo that is attached to the board letter as Attachment C. Recommendation 2 before your board is to approve the introduction of an ordinance, read title, and waive further reading of the ordinance that sets the initial tax rates for the cannabis business tax. On the left, you will see the following proposed tax rates. For retail, the recommendation is 4% of gross receipts, which is below the maximum 6% rate stated in the business tax ordinance. For manufacturing and processing, the recommendation is 2.5%. For distribution, the recommendation is 2%. And I will circle back to the cultivation rates in a moment. For testing laboratories, the recommendation is 1%. The category entitled Other is for any other type of cannabis business that is not previously described, and that recommendation is for 4%. Returning to cultivation tax rates, if the board opts to proceed with a percentage of gross receipts, the recommended rate is 1.75% across all cultivation types. If the board determines that it would like to proceed with a square footage methodology, the recommended rates are as follows. $7 per square foot for indoor cultivation with artificial lighting, $3 per square foot for mixed light cultivation, 50 cents per square foot for outdoor cultivation with natural lighting, and $1 per square foot for nurseries. And as you'll see on the next slide, these rates are within the range of other jurisdictions in the region. A variety of rates and methodologies currently exist in this region. In general, the recommended rates before you today are comparable to the rates of nearby jurisdictions. The proposed initial rates for the unincorporated area are shown at the bottom of this table for your reference. Retail rates, which are associated with a large portion of cannabis tax revenue in the region, span from 4% to 8% of gross receipts. The recommended initial rate for the unincorporated area is 4%. Cultivation rates cover a slightly larger span with a mix of two different methods across the region, gross receipts and square footage. And as indicated on the previous slide, the recommended rates for the unincorporated area would be either 1.75% of gross receipts or a combination of square footage rates ranging from 50 cents up to $7 per square foot, depending on the type of cultivation. And subject to your questions, this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and go to public comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 16 requests to speak on this item, 4 in person and 12 requesting to speak by phone. Also note for the record that we did not receive any comments on this item. Any members of the public that requested to speak on item 16 by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by those in opposition. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Jim Whalen, followed by Mark, Paul Hankin, and Audra.
Good afternoon. Chair Vargas, congratulations. I'm here in favor of the cannabis tax, and I'm here in favor of the gross receipts tax for a reason. Number one, it's more realistic.
If you could please state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm
Thank you.
sorry, you already did. It's Jim Whalen, J. Whalen Associates, San Diego. Sorry about that. Like I was saying, I'm here in favor of setting the tax burden based on the gross receipts for the straightforward reason is it's more realistic. Crop failures happen. When crop failures happen, the obligation is still there if it's done based on square footage. Second reason is the industry's in kind of financial trouble right now, like a lot. The four of the 5 existing licenses are for sale, and this approach would much more support a viable industry. And then the staff made a great comment about the system is self-adjusting based on the market. If the market's good, it goes up. If the market's down, it goes down. I also want to offer a couple related comments. I do like the balance in the tax rates being proposed. San Diego City does too high on the retail and not enough on the other. The county's approach, as staff presented, is much more reasonable. You still might need to adjust based on the market realities we're facing. The illegal delivery services, which they are right now, are killing the market. You can't get around them, and I think this is a multi-year problem to solve. But if we start out with a reasonable approach that targets the taxation to the actual receipts of the business, we have a better chance. The approach that we're talking about also supports the social equity goals that have been so important to the county. The people we work for, assuming we can make an economically effective approach, are going to come forward with a social equity model that will actually work. That's been a challenge. And I'll take any questions. I appreciate your listening. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, Paul Henkin. I'm glad you are giving this flawed and discriminatory business a second look after last year's go-around. The fiscal summary shows costs of $323,000, offset by annual revenue next year of an estimated $375,000. That's a paltry $52,000 gain. And the county is still working on setting up a socially equitable cannabis program, which will probably erase the gain, knowing salaries. One person will eat it up probably. It doesn't seem to factor in lost revenue due to businesses that will have to close due to inflation, utilities, salaries, goods and services, etc. So they won't be paying cannabis tax. A cannabis tax on business owners will impact any business which sells cannabis on the side, like a grocery store with a small cannabis section. It would be fairer to tax the people who actually buy the product, which would better approximate the proportion of the business devoted to cannabis. It is also unfair to tax the growers since they do not control how or where the product is used. This tax reduction applied to the unincorporated areas, but the entire county got to vote. That's
Thank you.
undiscriminated.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Use the name Audra. This is the San Diego cartel. It's so great. Makes sense with Nora as the chair. It's good. Just kind of funny because you're like, we're going to use the war on drugs and like tax these people to make up for that. Which is interesting because it's like you talk about wanting for people to kind of flourish and not, have all these issues that you guys create because you're basically taking all of their money. It's such a volatile business that, like others have said, I mean, they could lose their whole crop and lose money, but then you're still going to tax them And it's like, I don't understand how you can act like you're helping people by doing this. You guys are helping yourselves. There's a reason there's a black market, and there's a reason people should stay in it, because you don't have to deal with the cartel coming up and taking all of your money. You guys take like 70% of what they make. And it's like the market fluctuates so much. For you to do that, it's just ridiculous. And for you to say that you're using the war on drugs, it's like, just because it's this kind of business, you're taxing them astronomically. Then you need to do that equitably and do it to everybody, or don't do it at all. Because it's ridiculous. I feel like at this point, you're gonna start taxing the unvaccinated and be like, well, you're not vaccinated, so we're gonna have to tax you extra just to go around. Or maybe those vehicle mile travel tax, you're gonna make us pay more. You guys aren't equitable. You're punishing these people. This is a punitive tax, and it's not fair. So don't talk about equity and all equality and all this when you do shit like this.
So I'm just going to go ahead and make this announcement so that it's clear to anyone who's coming before us. Comments that are discriminatory or harassing will not be tolerated in the county. Racist comments, any of these members, are not appropriate. And so, as a county, we are committed to making sure that everybody's working in an environment that's free from unlawful discrimination and harassment, including sexual, racial, religious, age, disability, or any other form of discrimination or harassment. Any comments that are in violation of county policy will not be condoned. Any language that is unwanted, unwelcome, and/or inappropriate, and they interfere with the ability of those present to listen and understand, any county employee who is offended or otherwise does not wish to attend due to the remarks is going to be excused from the attendance. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Those are the rules of this chamber. If you do not like them, you can excuse yourself. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Final call for Mark. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll start with our first caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. While I support a tax on marijuana businesses being recommended today, I do not support the ballot statement that tax will be important to preserve the county's resources so that it can continue to fight against illicit cannabis businesses that have proliferated in many of our communities. Earlier this year, the Union Tribune reported legal and illicit blur in California hot market. The article describes how pre-existing illicit black market marijuana businesses uses the permitting process as a cover to continue their unpermitted activities. And that across the state, an honest look shows that permitting marijuana businesses has only fanned the flames of the illegal marijuana marketplace. We have marijuana businesses insiders speaking out with the truth, admitting to having two identities, one permitted and the other illicit, basically subsidizing their white market with their black market. The county could put a tax on marijuana businesses, but don't delude yourself or the voters or the general public that they can be enforced away, but they're hidden in plain sight. They are called the legacy market because they are so deeply entrenched that they're unreachable. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
I'm Barbara Gordon. I'm here speaking as a taxpayer's perspective. It's essential that the tax revenue collected from these marijuana businesses cover all the regulatory costs involved. The county must identify all the government activities required from oversight to enforcement. Taxes collected need to address the known problems regarding the impact to the community from these businesses, like drugs and impaired driving, need for more treatment programs, increased hospitalization costs, all due to marijuana use. I urge this board to put more money regarding the potential public health impacts of marijuana. Data from SANDAG recognizes that marijuana is the #1 drug found in the systems of the juvenile arrestees. The tax revenue collected needs to cover the mitigating impacts on youth use and the problems associated with addiction. The marijuana industry is using the same tactics as the tobacco companies, with its advertising on billboards, social media, edibles, all appealing to our kids, all luring young people with the messages of no risk, harmlessness, even natural. It's vital that this regulatory tax program needs to consider the total cost so taxpayers are not subsidizing this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Greg McCluskey, Ramona, California, owner of Ramona Cannabis Company, father of 8 children. Illicit delivery services have called me to ask to go legit. And when they find out their monthly income goes from $20,000 to $30,000 a month to $3,000 a month after taxes, payroll taxes, federal taxes, excise tax, sales tax, hidden fees, licensing fees, they leave and laugh at me for being legal and licensed. They realize 280E doesn't allow us to deduct these taxes as well. This tax is directly supporting the illicit market while undermining social equity while not convicting people for operating without a license. You must enforce the law or lower taxes to combat the illicit market. Nobody here buys alcohol from an illicit market. If you're caught selling alcohol without a license, the penalty is stiff. If you're caught building a house without a permit, the penalty is stiff. That is not the case with cannabis. Many illicit cannabis sellers or also sell other illegal substances. They don't stop at cannabis. Many illicit sellers will sell fentanyl, a dangerous substance, and they will sell it to minors. No minors are buying product from one of the legal cannabis businesses. None of the legal cannabis businesses are participating in the illicit sales of dangerous substances in unincorporated county. You have a conundrum created by social equity and taxes directly helping the illicit market while hurting the legal cannabis businesses. Our customers, many who are medical, will now pay over 32% in taxes and another 25% in hidden fees. To purchase the product, doctors recommend they use this product and then their insurance doesn't cover it. It's no shock that they turn to the illicit market to afford to take care of themselves. Let's stop taxing and feeing the most vulnerable of us, and let's eliminate the illegal market selling to minor children that potentially offer other dangerous options to those children. Stop supporting the $11 billion illicit market and start supporting the $4 billion legal market that is failing. We need to keep taxes as low as possible to San Diego County the safe life.
Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, this is Ren Bowden, owner of Jack's Cannabis in Ramona. Thank you, Chairman Vargas, Honorable Board. As been stated before, all of the 5 legal businesses are losing money at a huge rate. We were dug into a gigantic hole by the previous board, and we're trying to dig ourselves out of that right now. We just haven't even gotten our initial investments back. Our only hope of making money at this point is to sell, which means that all of these local-owned, 5 local-owned cannabis businesses will be sold to out-of-state and out-of-area operators, which is not what anyone wants. As they stated earlier, 4 or 5 are for sale at this point. If the board adopts this staff's recommendation of 1.75 cultivation tax rate, 2.5 manufacturing rate, 2.0 distribution, 4% retail tax, that will add an additional 10.25 tax on top of the already 15% state excise tax and 7.5 local sales tax for a grand total of 32.75% tax. Tell me any other industry that pays anything close to this. A 32.75% tax will not only drive more consumers to this illicit market and will hurt our older and fixed budget patients when prices go up further, driving even more and more people to the illicit, unsafe, untested market. The state has permanently eliminated, the state of California, the 12% cultivation tax. It did not lower or suspend the tax, but eliminated it and can maintain small local ownership if we currently have in the unincorporated area. We request a 1% tax for manufacturing and distribution until the full social equity ordinance is passed. It simply isn't unfair to expect these 5 currently local businesses, soon to be out of state, out of town ownership, to shoulder the full payment for decades.
We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Chair Vargas and Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and a public health advocate who is concerned with the negative impact marijuana businesses are having on communities and recognize that if the county moves forward with the marijuana ordinance, then taxes are crucial. Our county has suffered significantly as we've seen increased drug driving, as well as seeing an overwhelmed emergency room due to unintended consequences of high-potency THC products. Taxes should be allocated to the general fund and then redistributed to areas of the county most negatively impacted by marijuana businesses, particularly areas such as young children, teens, as well as older adults. Counter-advertising, prevention messaging, as well as improvements to recreational and after-school programs should be of the utmost priority. According to recent data of young child, accidental exposure to marijuana accounted for more than 40% of all human poison exposure calls. And our county data shows how our hospitals are feeling this same burden, with visits to the ER for marijuana misuse as they are upwards of 40 per day. I encourage you to set a generous tax rate, allowing the county room to compensate for the unintended losses that will undoubtedly present themselves, negatively impacting our emergency services. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. This is Peggy Walker. One of the pro-industry arguments for marijuana commercialization was the promise of tax revenues. Convolutely, however, time and again, those taxes generate complaints from an industry that constantly asks they be lowered once enacted. But marijuana tax policy, like tobacco tax policy, should be designed to protect users from industry exploitation. This is an addiction industry promoting psychotropic products with unprecedented THC potency. Given that the initial tax rates recommended in the staff report fall short of tax rates allowed, you would serve public interest by phasing in a tax increase over time to get closer to the maximum rates in order to meet high and unexpected regulatory costs and other costs like public education costs. Tobacco research shows that younger buyers of tobacco are especially price sensitive. So the higher the price, the more difficult it is for younger purchasers. True for tobacco, and it would be true for marijuana users as well. That's why a robust taxing mechanism for marijuana products would be a good youth prevention strategy. I hope that you'll consider this.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Ann Riddle here. I'm thinking that we are either dreaming, naive, or just plain lying if we think these taxes are going to accomplish two things that we are always told that they would. And one is that we will be able to use this money to mitigate impacts. Well, first of all, this money is going to the general fund, so those of us in the unincorporated area are never going to really see a dime of it. And we have also been told that it will remove the illegal market. Well, we really must be dreaming. There is the efforts to reshape such a vast illegal economy into a legal one just does not exist. The county doesn't have the resources, and the state doesn't either. The illegal market has flourished for decades, and it has grown ever since Prop 64 boldly said that if we pass it, this will incapacitate the black market. That didn't happen. If we take a good look at the city of San Diego, the other thing we noticed is that 50% of the marijuana businesses didn't even pay their tax, and the city didn't have the capacity to go and collect it from them, nor did they have the forensic bookkeeping services they needed to find it. Are we dreaming? I think maybe we are. Tax them high, but no, you're not going to get anything out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Clerk Andrew, can you hear me? It doesn't matter if you can hear me, because on January 10th, you didn't care when you turned off the call-in system. It must be your obsession with ivermectin. That's what I've heard. This is truth. The initial marijuana taxation program that no constituent voted for, and a racist socialist social equity component copied from radical Oakland, using the excuse of the war on drugs. But then you supervisors declared a war on fentanyl drugs and claimed to rectify injustices caused by the war on drugs by promoting drugs to those same victims. And then you tax the profit right out of the business when it's legalized. Over $37,000 for an initial operations fee license, plus an annual renewal fee, a minimum $50,000 fee for planning and development services, potential taxes on square footage up to $10 per square foot, up to 6% on gross receipts, and everything else all you supervisors can get your greedy hands on. Then we have the corrupt registrar of voters who can't even answer basic voting questions and lets unregistered people vote and lets people vote without even signing in. Wants us to believe that they accurately certified the general election vote result that most people voted to tax themselves. What a joke. Now it's going to cost over $323,000 just to administer this theft, because these supervisors' greed is worth almost $3 million in new taxes. And why is that so necessary? Let's hear Nora's answer from January 27th, 2021, why.
Specific revenue that can be generated from the cannabis industry that can potentially fill the county's budget shortfalls.
Fill the county budget shortfalls. How's the jungle so far, Nora? Ready to excuse yourself because you're offended? Will Helen write a letter for you? Will you leave a voicemail on county employees' phones like Nathan did? It's okay if you want to leave. I understand. It's a lot of pressure. Nathan, people whine, you know. You could do that.
Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to county staff for working diligently on developing our county's cannabis program and for the outreach that was carried out in this process. As everyone knows, this item before us today is a result of the November 8th election this last year, where the county cannabis business tax was approved by the majority of voters, 57.4%. So we're following up now with setting that structure. So I want to make sure that I, first and foremost, thank our existing operators within the county's unincorporated area that have reached out to my office and provided some of the feedback into our offices. I want to ensure that you continue to be an advocate for thriving business and economic prosperity, particularly for any emerging industry with so many complexities. For the first recommendation, determining the methodology that should be used for taxation of cultivation, I would like to make a motion to support the taxing based on square footage of the cultivation area. Upon looking at the different information, it seemed that particularly what I heard was that it was directly connected, what I've heard from the operators, that it's better that way because we're making sure that the cultivator would know the tax liability in advance and it would have a better opportunity for them. And then the second recommendation is to approve the introduction of the ordinance setting the initial rates for the cannabis business tax. And so I am proposing that we change the retail rate from the proposed 4% to 2%. Although the staff recommendation is amongst the lowest in the region and matches the city of La Mesa, I'd like to propose that we lower the retail tax to 2% to remain the most competitive in the region as we encourage businesses with our legal operators in an unincorporated area. We can continue to assess and monitor the development of the social equity program to determine if a different tax structure will be necessary in the future. But for now, I think it's important to look at this and really look for future items that are brought before us and the Office of Equity and Racial Justice to see the development of the social equitable cannabis program. So for clarity, my motion is to approve introduction of the ordinance using the square footage methodology for taxation of cultivation businesses, which is attachment B as amended with the tax rates under proposed section 22.4051, item 3, and retail being 2% instead of 4%, and further that the title of the ordinance be read and waived further reading of the ordinance. So that's a motion. And we have a second, and now Supervisor Anderson.
Yeah, I first of all, I want to thank everybody on this board. When I got elected, we had over 100 illegal pot shops in my district, selling drugs rampantly. It was absolutely horrible. And you all voted to fund having the sheriffs shut them all down. Is there anything that we have moving forward to protect these businesses with unlicensed mobile delivery service? In this tax, should some of this revenue be used to augment that or to go through it? One of the concerns I have is that these people invested large sums of money on what they thought to be legal businesses, and we're doing everything we can to protect them. But at the same token, they're still having difficulties making ends meet because we have an illegal mobile problem. We've eliminated over 100 illegal pot shops, but the mobile illegal is still out there. So I didn't know if staff could address that or what our plans are.
Sure. So Chairwoman Vargas, members of the board, and to respond to your question directly, staff did some research to determine what's currently being spent on enforcement for illegal cannabis activities. PDS estimated an annual spend of $190,000. That includes unpermitted dispensaries, illegal cultivation, grow activities, and general coordination with our other local and state agencies, primarily through the code compliance budget, which is based on general purpose revenue. The Sheriff's Department estimates they are spending roughly $2.7 million. Part of it is spent through the marijuana enforcement team, about $1.35 million of that, and the remainder is for other business units such as substations. They're also involved in illegal cannabis efforts to comprise that number. With regard to unlicensed mobile delivery service enforcement, that's something I probably wouldn't be qualified to answer directly, but if we have other staff or resources available to address that, or we may need to get back to you on that.
Madam Chair, board members, perhaps moving forward, we could look at how the ABC controls illegal alcohol movement, and maybe our staff can look at ways of adopting programs that would be as successful as the ABC has been, because rarely do we have issues of alcohol use that are inappropriate or aren't taken care of immediately. Thank you.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. And I just want to, I got a couple of comments and a question, but so you want to go, the motion is the cultivation indoors per square footage, and at what rate? Because I noticed the choices were 7.3 or different. Is it the $7 per square foot? The 7. Okay, I'm looking at this other chart. Okay, so it's a 7, and then go to on the retail from 4% to 2%. And there was another part of that motion, or just those two? Okay, okay. Well, all right. Well, I realize this is just about settling taxes, and I haven't been in favor of the marijuana dispensaries in the unincorporated area the whole time. But as we set these dollars that are collected, I do think they should be benefiting the communities that they're in. And I know this is general fund money, but I think we have to take into account it's relevant to mention again that the unincorporated dispensaries are, by county code, are allowed for consumption and smoking or tasting rooms on site. And I know we're not talking about that today. But if we're going to have people getting high and driving on the windy roads, dimly lit, in the unincorporated area, you know, that's a bigger risk that's being taken. So I would like to see some sort of a cost recovery program for the additional county resources since the on-site consumption is going to create some impacts to these communities. I have a question to staff and then a little bit more a little bit more of a comment. So can we put an annual fee or a consumption fee on the tasting rooms? I understand those, they're going to have to get a permit for that, but can we put an annual fee on those at a later date when those come to fruition?
I understand that this is something that the Land Use and Environment Group will be looking at as they move forward with looking at the permitting process. We do have a representative from Planning and Development Services here. If there's something that they'd like to add, I ask them to come forward.
So it's potential, there's going to be some sort of permits that are being given out.
That's right.
And it might be attached to those permits.
That is correct.
Okay.
Oh, there's Sarah. I didn't see you back there.
Supervisor Desmond, yes, when we come back to you in the summer of this year, and then also with the subsequent PEIR and so forth that will be moving forward, we will be able to bring the global components that would have some fees attached to them, and that'll be addressed in that part. And then Supervisor Anderson, for purposes of the dark web components, Sheriff's Department and Planning and Development Services are having those conversations because, as you've mentioned, the brick and mortar related components, we've been very successful in addressing, but we are focusing on the feedback that we've received from the dispensaries.
So I had a follow-up on that. Another comment? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. So in my district, no sponsor group, no planning group, no unincorporated community has ever expressed to me that they want dispensaries in their neighborhoods, but they're going to get them. So I think they should see as much benefit as possible. I would prefer to implement the highest rates that we can, so the unincorporated area communities that bear the burden can receive maybe as much benefit as possible. The county should, with I was almost going to, I was on the fence of supporting the staff's recommendation, but with the new motion at 2% for the retail, we're the lowest. The city of San Diego is 8%. So why would we want, it being the lowest, it would probably mean that we would attract more dispensaries in the unincorporated areas, because the La Mesa is at 4%. You got two at 5. You've got two entities, Lemon Grove and Oceanside, at 5%. You've got Vista at 7%, Chula Vista at 7%, and City of San Diego at 8%. If we're at 2%, that's pretty low. I think that's too low, and why should the unincorporated areas kind of be the undercutting or underselling the competition and charging the lower rate? So I would have supported staff's recommendation, even though I don't really, but even on the manufacturer, we're the second to the lowest. On the distributor tax, we are at the lowest there. So it appears we're, the bargain hunting cannabis dispensary is going to be going to the unincorporated area, and I think we should at least be par, but not the lowest in the retail area. But so I'm not going to support the motion, but I appreciate the time to comment.
Yeah, so just to be clear, San Diego went from 8 to 2%. Supervisor Fletcher?
Thank you. I'll note for the record Supervisor Desmond's opposition to a policy because the taxes are not high enough.
Yeah, you're right. Well, in this case, yeah.
You vote no because we're not taxing people enough, which is, hey, you know what? It's a new day in San Diego County. I want to thank everyone. I appreciate the work. Last November, the public overwhelmingly supported putting this mechanism in place. It's been a long road. We're still not quite all the way there, but we are getting there on a cannabis thing. And the reality is, look, this industry struggled. There was a really exhaustive LA Times piece I remember reading a while back talking about the impact of what was put in place since Prop 64 passed back in 2016. We have seen jurisdictions lowering rates to try and ensure financial viability, to ensure if you get that at the right place, you can be more competitive and get a greater crowding out of the black market. And that certainly is a part of the goal. State and local taxes have been reduced. I appreciate the state of California moving on a tax credit program and pausing their excise tax for a few years. And so I think with all of these things under consideration before us, I do think it is appropriate that we move forward. And I think the lower rate is the way to go. I would like us, though, to keep an open mind as we go forward on square footage versus gross receipts. I think this is something we need to really look at as this gets rolled out and implemented. What is the impact? I think we need to continue to listen to the stakeholders, and I think we need to be open to perhaps adjusting as we move forward, whether it's gross receipts or square footage, along with the percentages of where we are. And I agree wholeheartedly with Supervisor Anderson. This effort to have a safe, regulated, and legal market will not be effective unless we simultaneously ensure that there is rigorous enforcement on the black market system. And we did a very good job, thanks to Supervisor Anderson and Sheriff's Department, in cracking down on all of the illicit brick and mortar locations. But we're in a world where brick and mortar locations are a small percentage of the total of what people are consuming across the board, not just cannabis. And so I eagerly look forward to, and perhaps it's something we can talk to the Sheriff's Department, some other folks around what we may be able to do around mobile delivery in terms of ensuring and seeing if there's a way the success we had in the physical locations and shutting down the unlicensed illegal operators in physical place, if we can have that same success as it relates to mobile delivery, again with the goal to ensure a safe, regulated, and legal market. And so pleased to move forward, and certainly something we're going to have to continue to monitor as we move into the future.
Thank you, and I absolutely agree. With that, we have a motion and a second. Please call the vote. Oh, please vote.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. With that motion, this item introduces an ordinance amending the San Diego County Code of Regulatory Ordinances, Title II, Division 2, Chapter 4, relating to setting initial rates for the cannabis business tax. That motion passes with Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. The next item is board committee reports. We good? At each meeting, I will ask if any of you want to provide a brief update report on progress or share pertinent information during this time. Colleagues? None? Okay. With that, that concludes the business before the board today. We'll now proceed. Oh, no, I have to do, we're going to do those. Yeah, okay. Let me do the adjournments first. That concludes the business before the board today. We'll now proceed with our 3 adjournments in memory. Today's first adjournment will be presented by Supervisor Nathan Fletcher in memory of Maurice Edward Lawyer.
Thank you. Today we remember and honor a truly remarkable man, Maurice Lawyer. Maurice Edward Lawyer was born to Dr. Marion Davis and Richard Lawyer in Victorville, California. He moved quite a bit early in his life. In his early childhood, he lived in Turkey, North Dakota, Illinois, before his family resettled in Victorville. At Victorville High School, he loved playing football, but in addition to football, he joined the choir. As he pointed out to a friend, it's not because he loved singing, but because they made an annual trip to Disneyland, and he did not want to miss an opportunity to go to the happiest place on earth. Immediately after high school, they moved to San Diego, and that was home from then on. But San Diego was not just a destination to live, it was a location where he found the love of his life, Sandy McBrayer. They met, they fell in love, and they enjoyed an incredible life of passion, excitement, and adventure. Everyone who knows Sandy knows she loves adventure, and this was something that they shared together. Maurice was always in to join her, whether it was canoeing down the Zambezi in Africa, one of their incredible and somewhat intimidating cycling trips across states, across countries, in some cases across entire continents. Maurice would regale folks with the stories of these trips, including the instances when it didn't always go as they had planned. A cycling trip from Prague to Budapest that included some maps that were not quite accurate or particularly useful. But all of this added to an incredible zest for life and an enjoyment of one another and all that this world has. They enjoyed skiing, camping, mountain biking, and golfing. Maurice also played and coached competitive softball. He even made it to the Softball World Series. But beyond their adventures around, Maurice and Sandy loved in having their friends, their family, incredible hosts, cooking, preparing incredible meals and wonderful dinner parties for their friends and family. Professionally, Maurice had a 40-year career in the aerospace industry. He worked with jet engines in the unmanned aircraft. For the last 14 years, he worked at General Atomics, working to try and support and protect service members who were deployed. For his work, he was awarded a flag that flew over the Balad Air Base in Iraq for the efforts that he had directly contributed to help the safety of our deployed service members. Tragically, on September 11, 2022, we lost Maurice. It was a terrible loss of an incredibly kind, humble, funny, and engaging individual who loved his family, he loved his wife, he loved his community. As a Board of Supervisors, we extend our deepest sympathies to his wife, Sandy, to his sisters, Desiree and Angel, his brothers, Rick, his many nieces and nephews, and to all of Sandy's family who welcomed him with open arms and hearts. He will forever be missed, but there is a great recognition of a wonderful life that was lived and an incredible positive impact that Maurice had on everyone who know him. And today we adjourn our San Diego County Board of Supervisors meeting in memory of Maurice Lawyer.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. The second adjournment will be presented by Supervisor Jim Desmond in memory of Jack Dorsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to adjourn today's meeting in memory of Jack Dorsey of North County, who at the age of 89 passed away on January 9th, 2023, from a lengthy battle with cancer. He was born in Washington, D.C. Jack graduated from the University of Maryland and served his country as a submariner in the U.S. Navy during the Korean War. Over the next 40 years, he enjoyed his business, Jack Dorsey sailboats, located in San Diego's Harbor Island, and became one of the largest maritime dealerships in California, with additional locations in Orange County and Hawaii. During his time, he met the love of his wife, Carolyn, his wife of 52 years. Jack and Carolyn exchanged vows in 1970 on a yacht, followed by a reception at the Bali High restaurant, and they participated in the Acapulco race the very next day. Residing in Rancho Santa Fe since 1971, they continued their love of sailing, including staging the annual charitable Go Fly a Kite and Sail race, with over 250 boat entries each year. The Dorseys were active members of the San Diego Yacht Club, where Jack competed in sailboat races, including the Trans-Pacific Yacht Race. Active in his community, Jack was elected to the Rancho Santa Fe Association Board of Directors and was appointed by Governor Pete Wilson to serve on the California Boating and Waterways Commission. In his retirement years, he authored several books, took singing lessons, and produced several albums and many fun singing opportunities while he restored vintage tractors. Jack lived life to the fullest, and he will be missed, but not forgotten, in our hearts, and our hearts go out to his entire family, including his beloved wife, Carolyn, daughter, Debbie, and grandson, David. Jack Dorsey will be truly missed.
Thank you. The final adjournment will be presented by myself in memory of Paula Casillas. Paula Casillas, ni Paula Silva, was born on the Paula Indian Reservation in California, November 25th, 1925, to a life of extreme poverty and hardship. At a young age, Paula exhibited a talent for art. Unable to access proper tools for painting, she would cut pictures out of a magazine and paste them on the walls while visualizing the revisions she would make to the photos. In 1942, her father, Rafael Silva, accepted a job as a tractor operator on a farm and moved the family to Chula Vista, California. The children labored in the celery fields, planting, weeding, and harvesting before and after school. During World War II, Paula was employed at war aircraft as a spot welder, a real-life Rosie the Riveter. Her career abroad allowed her access to the American dream, and she was proud to have purchased a house for her mother in Otay, California. Paula married Nicolas Casillas on April 21st, 1946, and continued painting through her marriage to Nicolas while raising three exuberant daughters, Gloria, Mary, and Alicia. Paula and Nicolas were part of the founding members of Precious Blood Church. Paula demonstrated her deep faith and devotion for many years as a member of the Altar Society, Eucharistic minister, and catechism teacher. With her mailing talents, she designed murals, investments in altar clothes, and paintings. This includes the 12 stations of the cross that adorn the walls of Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in Otay. Paula's husband, Nicolas, passed away suddenly in 1987, and she turned to her art as part of grieving therapy. Her work included a wide variety of mediums, including oil, water, color pencil, acrylic, scrap materials, and wood carving, which she would embellish with gold leaf and small colored crystals. In November 2022, the Casa Casillas Gallery and Art Incubator, located at 50 North 4th Avenue in Chula Vista, was dedicated in her name The opening of Casa Casillas 2025 will showcase Paula's talent and will feature works completed by Paula over the years. Paula will be remembered by her family as a strong, caring, and compassionate matriarch. She is survived by her 3 daughters, 8 great-children, and 6 great-grandchildren. Services will be, she is the mother of our former mayor of Chula Vista, Mayor Casillas Salas. And with that, I would like to make sure that we adjourn in memory of Paula Casillas today. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 20 remaining requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 12 in person and 8 requesting to speak by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'll be calling you in groups of 5, so please listen for your name. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Estela Garza, Oliver Twist, Corbin Sabol, Mike Borello, and Mark. If I've called your name, please come forward. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Sí, gracias. Muy buenas tardes.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes.
Mi nombre es Estela Garza. Soy proveedora de IHSS en la ciudad de Chula Vista y presidenta del Distrito 1 de IUDW.
Okay, my name is Estela Garza, and I'm a provider for the IHSS in Chula Vista, and I am the president of the District UDW.
He sido cuidadora por más de 16 años. Actualmente cuido a mi hija, quien vive con parálisis cerebral.
I've been a provider for 16 years. Right now, I'm taking care of my daughter, who suffers from cerebral palsy.
Sin embargo, mi hija cuenta con suerte porque afortunadamente puedo cuidarla de ella.
However, my daughter is very lucky because fortunately, I'm able to take care of her.
Hay más de 2,000 personas mayores, personas con discapacidad en el condado de San Diego.
Okay. We have over 2,000, people that are, disabled, that are elderly.
En el condado de San Diego, que simplemente no tienen atención necesaria.
Okay, and these are in the San Diego County, who just, honestly, they don't have the necessary attention that they need.
Son casi 2 millones de horas de atención, de trabajo duro.
Okay, there's almost 2 million hours of care, attention, of really hard work.
Que no se cumplen cada año porque nuestras fuerzas laborales no pueden satisfacer las necesidades de nuestra comunidad debido a las faltas del salario.
And this, we cannot get it done by the end of the year. Why? Because we don't have the workforce that is necessary to meet the needs of our community. That is due to the lack of salaries.
El condado de San Diego está fallando en reconocer las crisis de atención a largo plazo.
Okay, so the county of San Diego is failing because they're not acknowledging the crisis of attention that is needed, for long term.
Y el primer paso más fácil es pagarles a los proveedores un salario digno con beneficios sólidos que podamos cuidar de ellos.
And the first step, the easiest thing to do is to go ahead and pay the providers a dignified salary with, benefits, so we can go ahead and take care of them on the proper way.
De nosotros mismos y de nuestras familias, mientras que cuidamos a quienes nos necesitan en nuestras comunidades.
And we can do this, our own families, and then we can take care of those who really need the attention here in our communities.
Queremos trabajar con el condado para continuar fortaleciendo el programa de IHSS.
We would like to continue working with the county because we want to make the IHSS program a lot stronger.
y hacer de la atención en el hogar una carrera deseable.
Okay, and to do what it's called working for at home, a very, very, well-known and desired career.
Cerremos la brecha en la atención al trabajo y cerremos la brecha en la atención y trabajemos juntos.
Okay, let's close, this, and let's get together, all of us, and work together.
Por un condado de San Diego mejor y más fuerte para todos nosotros. Muchas gracias.
This is to make San Diego County, better and stronger for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Oliver Twist here. First, since Nora led the way this morning correcting language, I will do so now. Pregnant women. On to the land acknowledgement, which I don't know if that's going to be a weekly thing when we do this here, but please stop the tokenism. If you're serious about it, then give the land back. If you won't, your words are hollow. You would be better focused on talking to your friends at San Diego State and having changed the Aztecs. That's something that you could actually do and accomplish for appropriation instead of the tribalistic performative theater of the land acknowledgement. I again call on you to implement a split screen format for your video feed during public comments so that there is an archival record on whether you're paying attention to speakers or instead staring down at your phone. Next, I'm also asking you to implement a formal attendance policy and tracking record. After making a public records request for your attendance records, I was told that it would be up to me to dig through each individual minutes to find out who was here, who wasn't, and then there's no way other than watching the video to see who was late or who left early. And so that is important, especially now if you're vice chair staying for the whole meeting, and thank you for doing so today, Tara. Also, in light of Tara's teleconferencing at the SANDAG meeting, which was celebrated as a hurrah for working moms, I'm asking you to fully demonstrate your commitment to equity for your own staff and workforce. Implement and give them 5 virtual days benefit where they too can work remotely for caregiving purposes. Please remedy this and bring their benefits up to par with your own. Demonstrate your commitment to equity by allowing those 5 virtual days. Lastly, regarding SANDAG and the representation, no to any mileage tax, no to any tracking, no to taxes. A regional plan built on hoping new taxes passed when they couldn't even get the last one on the ballot is a pipe dream and a fiscal house of cards. Thank you.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite 5 additional speakers. Editha Adams, Bridget Browning, Alor Calderon, Audra, and Consuelo.
Mike Burlow. So I'd like to make some comments regarding a disaster far worse than climate change. The SANDAG meeting last week. A circus. Wait, no, a train wreck. I do not consent. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm not being fairly represented. Rotten politics is reshaping SANDAG's structure and rules to push forward a climate justice agenda that will ultimately lead to a mileage tax, among other harms. Yes, more taxes as Californians flee the state. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness can't sustain yet another tax assault. I do not consent. Before the last SANDAG meeting, one of our city council members, Priya Bhat Patel, was shadily appointed as our city SANDAG rep. The appointment was arranged outside the Brown Act requirements, away from the public eye and backroom discussion following a council meeting that ended in an undecided 2-round deadlock vote. Also, Patel doesn't represent me. Patel represents roughly a quarter of Carlsbad residents, so 3/4 of Carlsbad is not getting represented at SANDAG. The weighted vote system can't fix that. Priya voted Vargas for chair. Reamer wasn't there, but her toddler was. I call taxation without representation. Pay attention, folks. There's $163 billion of our tax money at stake while people struggle to buy a carton of eggs and buy gas. I do not consent. I demand a recall and hold on all actions last Sandag meeting until the people of San Diego get proper representation. Better yet, just dissolve Sandag. Get rid of it. I do not consent.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Edita Adams, and I'm an IHSS provider from Escondido, and I'm also the UDW statewide president. There are over 30,000 IHSS providers throughout our county. We wake up every day and dedicated ourselves to serving our clients, whether they're family or not, with the care, love, and compassion they deserve. And although our clients depend on our work every day, IHSS providers are the lowest paid workers in the county, the lowest paid workers in the county. Caregivers deserve stability. We deserve to know that our future as caregivers, as residents in this county, are safe. We need you. We need you to stand with us and help us push forward our new contracts so that together we can better plan for the future of home care workers and in turn plan for our aging population. We need you to start to right the 20 years of wrongdoing and neglect IHSS providers have faced so that we can finally get closer to the first step in fixing this broken system. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to call up the remaining speakers in person, Sandra Martinez and Paul Henkin.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Bridget Browning from the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council. I first wanted to recognize Chairwoman Vargas's leadership this morning with the janitors. It really meant a lot to us. I think you guys have a unique perspective right now in being able to change the lives of mostly immigrant men and women who are working for very poor wages, both with the janitors and the ISSS workers. I can't imagine being able to change the lives of 31,000 workers. It's so awesome that you all are on the board now, and it's not the board previously who just didn't care that people were living in poverty. And I'm really proud to be here in front of you today with our folks. You know, I know in particular how hard this work is because my father-in-law recently died with us at our house. And it's God's work, to be honest, and there's very few people willing to do it, and especially when they're making $16 an hour, that you're just not gonna find people, unless it's their own family, that are gonna do it. And then that means that they're gonna end up institutionalized, which is gonna cost you way more than actually giving them a living wage so that they can provide these services at home. I know that you've stated support moving this forward and giving care raises to the caregivers, and I'm here to help you in any way that I can. Just some points to think about. There just aren't enough IHSS providers to do the work currently. Seniors and people with disabilities are going without care. Our loved ones and neighbors are more likely to end up in emergency rooms or costly institutional care. And in fact, a 2019 audit of the IHSS program in San Diego County found that nearly 2 million hours of IHSS care was going unmet in our county every year, leaving more than 2,000 seniors and people with disabilities without the care they need each month. I look forward to a great celebration for the IHSS workers and the janitors, and I thank you so much for your time today.
Next speaker, please.
Consuelo. In a world of propaganda, the truth is always a conspiracy. And gradually, though no one remembers exactly how it happened, the unthinkable becomes tolerable, and then acceptable, and then legal, and then applaudable. The perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of a democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery where through consumption and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitude. The greatest threat to mankind and all of life on this beautiful planet is not climate change, overpopulation, terrorism, racism, or resource scarcity. No, the greatest threat to mankind is the same today as it was 1,000 years ago. We are ruled over by parasitical psychopaths who plunge us into war, manipulate us against each other, and flood our minds with fear, hate, bigotry, and ignorance with every chance they get, until you realize the government is not your friend. The law is not here to protect you. Money is not here to give you life. The church is not here to save you. The doctor is not there to make you healthy. The school system is not here to give you knowledge. The pharmacy is not there to cure you. You will never be free. The Trojan horse of the New World Order, Agenda 21, under the guises of climate change and the terms like Build Back Better, the international bankers through various front organizations, UN, WEF, are attempting to install totalitarian one world government to rule over everything on this planet, including every one of us. Do not fall for it. Research UN Agenda 21. When all the guns have been banned, when all the words have been censored, when all history has been erased, when all freedoms have been taken, only then will you discover that you should have spoken up and done something about it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Okay, Paul Hinken. Sandag is too big for its boots. Nora, please rein it in. Its mission is transportation planning, not city planning. I am concerned about the failed audits, exclusion of dissenters on the board, and now of passing proposals with 4 votes rather than a majority. That is not democratic. It's a public group, not a private club. Sandag's auditor found improper severance and bonus payments and misuse of employee credit cards. This board apparently let it go. The latest audit found contracts often were missing signatures, breakdowns of work, and an original amount field. Officials increased contracts by at least $250 million. Apparently, for opposing their mileage tax, Sandag's board barred former Carlsbad Mayor Blackburn from taking office and Chula Vista Mayor McCann late last year from taking office. Dissent can bring about positive change and should be tolerated, if not encouraged. These are the people who want a trolley going into TJ, a good way to let gangs and drugs into the area, and driverless EVs, crazy people. How far will you let their waste, fraud, and abuse go before you close the money taps and tell them to get lost? Sandag seems to be run by narcissistic bullies who can't withstand any dissent. You should have said no to it long ago. Thanks for listening.
Next speaker, please.
You know who I am. Just kind of sad. I feel like the whole strike outside, it's like more optics to be like, we need to help them right away. We don't want to look bad. Even though workers come all the time and they're just like, we're so unhappy with the way we're treated, all while you guys sit up here and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's so sad. And just the virtue signaling that we have to endure over this Holocaust stuff, it's definitely something we should never forget. And there's a reason for that, because then you know what you're looking at in the future and what's happening. And it's a repeat of history on a total global scale to destroy humanity, not just one race, but all humans. And the way that you guys do this, it's like you have to go into every little nook and cranny in people's lives. I mean, we have, you know, a young girl, as you guys like to say, that anybody can use any restroom as long as, you know, a grown man feels like a young girl, he can go in naked. And a young girl can be told that she was never unsafe. This happened in Santee at the YMCA. It's disturbing to know that this stuff takes place and you guys don't care, but you sit here and you act like you care about stuff, but you're willing to put, you know, young girls at risk just so some man that doesn't feel safe going into the men's restroom doesn't have to experience that. Well, I went to my babysitter's house every day thinking I was safe, and I wasn't. So there's a problem when you guys blur the lines like that, and you want to sit here and talk about, we don't want to tolerate hateful language. You're the one determining that it's hateful. And number two, it's like, but you do condone the beating of women. So it's interesting that you don't want to be called names, which you weren't called names, but you allow women to be beat in the hall and you ignore the shit out of it. It's so good.
Thank you. Final call for Laura Calderon, Corbin Sable, Mark, and Sandra Martinez. Not seeing any movement in the chamber, we'll now proceed with those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll start with our first caller.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with a focus on tobacco use prevention. Over the years, policymakers and members of the public have learned much about the nefarious tactics of the tobacco industry and the health damage caused by tobacco use. In the public health world, we appreciate the county's efforts and the public health strategy to make tobacco use less desirable, less acceptable, and less accessible. Yet this is not the strategy when it comes to marijuana. Instead, it would seem the marijuana industry has fewer guardrails, less enforcement, or arguably no enforcement, and an expansion of marijuana outlets and uncontrolled advertising, with the end result being more users. County leaders can provide guardrails for a voracious marijuana industry by limiting the promotion of marijuana and reducing exposure to secondhand marijuana smoke and aerosol, smoke and vape residue, and marijuana waste products. It is my hope and the hope of many in public health that you will take these measures seriously and take action. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Truth. Last week, the World Economic Forum had their annual meeting where they spoke about topics such as bringing together countries and corporations to grow global pathogen surveillance, bringing corporations into the climate change cult, stealing energy from Indonesia to give to Ukraine, systemic change to build the world they want, and how demand must come down whether we like it or not. Many people like to say they oppose the WEF, but let's see if you really do, or if you can avoid them at all. Here's just some of the World Economic Forum's partners as listed on their website: AARP, Abbott Labs, Adobe, Amazon, American Express, American Heart Association, Apple, ARA, who the county contracted with last year, AstraZeneca, Bank of America, Bayer, Gates Foundation, BlackRock, Bloomberg, Chevron, Cisco, Citi, Coca-Cola, Cox, CVS, Dell, Discovery, Goldman Sachs, Google, H&M, Heineken, HP, Hitachi, Honda, Honeywell, Hyundai, IBM, Illumina, Intel, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan Chase, Kaiser, Kikkoman, L'Oreal, LinkedIn, Lockheed Martin, Marriott, Mary Kay, MasterCard, Mayo Clinic, Merck, Meta, Microsoft, Mitsubishi, Moderna, Morgan Stanley, Mozilla, NBC, Nestle, New York Times, Nokia, Novartis, Open Society, PayPal, Pepsi, Pfizer, PG&E, Procter & Gamble, Prudential, Qualcomm, Ralph Lauren, Sempra, Shell, Sony, State Farm, Syngenta, Cisco, Estee Lauder, Lego, Thermo Fisher, who the county contracted with last year, TikTok, Time, Toyota, Tyson Foods, Uber, Unilever, Visa, Volkswagen, Volvo, Walmart, Welcome Trust, Western Digital, Western Union, and Williams-Sonoma, just to name a few. The World Fascist Forum, of which Nathan is a member.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Chair Vargas and Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp, and I am a parent and a public health advocate concerned with the negative impact marijuana businesses are having on communities. I appreciated earlier the public comments regarding the gun violence listening session. I attended one of these sessions and wanted to add my voice to those who already spoke. The overwhelming consensus of those in attendance was the fact that poor mental health is the biggest factor leading to violence as a whole. Whether individuals are suffering from suicidal ideology or suffering from a psychotic break, it's crucial the county focus on the root of the problem. The North County Gang Commissioner was in attendance at my listening session and stated it perfectly. A solution to gun violence is helping our youth, providing mental health treatment and drug prevention. It was also stated at the listening session that mental health holds make up half of the patients in the ER. The majority of those patients are on drugs and alcohol, primarily meth and high-potency THC products. Meth is classified as a highly potent illegal drug, yet the high-potency THC product, they're having the same effect on individuals in emergency rooms. This points to the root cause of the problem and should raise concerns surrounding the unlimited level of THC that can be consumed. I ask you to please consider the experiences of those on the front lines when discussing gun violence. Educating our youth on the negative effects of drugs what they can have on our mental health is crucial, especially high-potency THC products. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, we'll proceed to closed session. This session is now adjourned.
The board will now recess into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 17 on today's agenda, as well as item 1 on the In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out during the planning and land use session of this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, January 25th, 2023.